Hello, and welcome to the Coach Right podcast, where we explore how to turn coaching expertise into published pages. I'm your host, Helen O'Neill, portfolio career specialist, author, and creator of Coach Right, the writing space and program specifically designed for coaches. You can get the episode show notes and your free guide to publishing options at coachright.co.uk. It's time for the next chapter. Hello, and welcome to the Coach Right podcast. Helen here, and this is episode 29. Today, in the footnotes, I'll be answering a question from Dorothy. Should you write your book in British or US English? Before we get into that, it's worth noting that those are not the only two options available. There are a whole myriad of variations of the English language. I counted 18 options in the Microsoft Word language preference. So while today we're talking specifically about UK, US variations, a lot of what I'm going to talk about will be relevant if your local variation is somewhere else in the world. And when you say it, it does seem like such a quick question, doesn't it? A spelling question. Do we use the U's or the Z's or Z's? Is it colour or colour with or without a U? But as writers, of course, we know it's never that simple. And as with so many of the writing choices that we have to make, it's about connection with who you're writing for and how you're writing it. So let's start there and work through the considerations so that you can make the choice that's right for you and right for your readers. As we've said many times before, it is highly likely that your ideal reader and your ideal client are the same person, or at least very similar. So the obvious first question is to ask, where do they live? Now, of course, there's an assumption baked in here that your clients are based in the same country as you, which may or may not be true. But for the sake of ease, let's go with that. If you're working predominantly in the States, it probably makes sense to write in US English. While if more of your clients are in the UK and your existing audience are here, writing in British English is the obvious choice. It gets more tricky when your aspirations for the book are broader than your immediate audience. The US book market is simply bigger. So if discoverability and reach are priority for you, then there's a reasonable argument for writing in US English. Please note, though, bigger market doesn't necessarily mean better market. So please think carefully. My books are written in British English. My clients are based here, and while I do have readers and listeners in other countries, my writing talks to the local experience. So it makes sense to use British English. The next thing to think about is voice. At the time of recording, we are being flooded with AI-generated slop. It has never been more important to sound like you. Your author voice is what connects people to you. When I meet someone in person for the first time, particularly if they've been reading the weekly Coach Right Reflections, they will often say how much I sound the same in person as I do in that weekly email. And that's because they are me. And you'll notice that all of my written content has a very similar tone. The turns of phrase that you use will be unique to you. They will vary depending on the culture that surrounds you. Again, this is less about those spelling choices and more about making sure that you sound like you do in real life. If you sound like a different person when you read your work out loud, you might want to reconsider some of your choices. Taking this one step further, you might decide you want to produce your book in audio. A non-fiction title is often best narrated by the writer. You don't have to, but it's amazing for connection and something to think about when you're considering language choice. Ultimately, there isn't one language choice that's better or worse. I can't actually give you a list of criteria to tick off and add up and work out whether or not version A or version B is the way to go. What's most important is simply that you're consistent. There is no good picking British English and diligently removing all the Z's only to use double speech marks for direct speech. And if you're anything like me, you've read so many books with so many forms of English over the years that you really don't notice these details. And it's really rather a long time since you've studied grammar at school. I recommend making your choice and investing in a style guide for that choice. And then when you've finished your draft, invest in a good editor, a human editor. You will be amazed what they pick up. Of course, it's also worth considering things like local knowledge, vocabulary, cultural experience when you're writing. Is it a trunk or a boot, a pant or a trouser? Are you sharing examples of news, events, or experiences that might need additional context for your reader? Personally, I like to use a blend of international narratives to help bring my books to life. And it can be as simple as grounding the example by explaining the country that it was in, or giving more detail about a turn of phrase. For me, that allows me to welcome an international readership without removing the localised feel. Now, everything I've just said applies wholeheartedly if you independently publish. If you choose to traditionally publish, that choice may not be yours. Their house style will dictate the spelling conventions and the language choices. If you're independent, you get to create your own house style. And I highly recommend that you do that if you're writing regularly. It's also really quite handy for training your AI tool of choice. And if you're thinking about your book as a commercial product, an asset, it is important to think about this question. Anecdotally, feedback suggests that it actually matters less than we think it does. Readers buy books because of the cover, the title, the blurb, the recommendation that brought them there, and increasingly what shows up when they ask an AI assistant for recommendations. Spelling convention is way down that list for most readers, and for most, it doesn't register at all. Plenty of British authors sell well in the US, writing British English and vice versa. That said, if you choose British English, a small number of readers will notice and they will mention it, probably in reviews. You will get a 1-star review saying, "This book is full of spelling errors." I know some authors that put a note in the front of their book to say something along the lines of, "I write in British English, so the U's are meant to be there," or something similar by way of a friendly warning. But the error messages will still happen. And honestly, a 1-star review can only be a help rather than a hindrance. For most of you listening who are professional coaches writing a book primarily to build credibility, deepen client relationships, and support a client base based in a particular country, I would write in your local voice. It's authentic to you, matches how you sound in person, and removes a layer of that icky, does it sound like me, anxiety. But all of that aside, please don't overthink it. If English is your second language or your third, choose the version that's most accessible to you. If you're an expat, lean into your client base. If you simply prefer one version over the other, choose that. Just choose. Be consistent, because like so many things in this industry, it's that consistency that's most important. If you have a question that you'd like me to cover on the footnotes, drop me an email, helen@coachwrite.co.uk. It's human me that manages that mailbox, and it's always lovely to hear from listeners. Next week on the show, I'll be joined by Hayley Brackley, and we'll be talking all about her book, The 7 Lenses, a new way of seeing neuro-inclusion. I'll see you for the next chapter. Thank you for joining me today. You can get the show notes and your free guide to publishing options at coachwrite.co.uk. Remember to subscribe and leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. Your words can make a difference. A review can too. If you'd like to connect, find me on LinkedIn, O'Neill Helen. That's O'Neill, ONEILL, or on Instagram at coach_write. I'll see you for the next